morning, friends. My name is Darren St. George, and welcome to another one of Sal's Monday morning virtual road trips. It's such a pleasure to see you. If you've been with us before, welcome back. Always an honor to have you join us. If this is your first time, welcome to the party. This is how we celebrate every Monday morning by celebrating entertainment's leaders, legends, and icons, and this morning is no exception. Today we're heading to Nayak, New York. Sal's taking us on a virtual road trip to the Edward Hopper Museum, which we're quite enthusiastic for. We're honored to be joined by Alex Davies, the office administrator, and Carol Perry, the interim artistic director for the Edward Hopper Museum. As always, please be sure to keep your camera and microphone on mute throughout today's program. We appreciate that in advance. If you have any questions, though, we certainly want to hear them. We want to hear your voice. So let us know where you're watching from. Send it in the chat. Whether you're on Facebook or Zoom, we'll be monitoring both. Use the chat to let us know what you think, what you want to learn more about. We want to hear from you. Next week, Sal and I are off, but John will be revisiting Sal's lecture of the Carol Burnett Show. I already know it's going to be fantastic. If you haven't seen it before, if you're a fan of Carol Burnett, that's not a program you're going to want to miss. Sign up, salstgeorge.com as always. We have John Higgins behind the scenes, making sure everything runs smoothly, but let's get to today's program. Sal, Dad, are you there?
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Darren.
Hey, Pop, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. And hi, John. I know you're back there somewhere. I'm really excited about today's program.
And you know, I forgot to mention, we have an exciting development here. We've been doing Zoom for over a year now, and we just learned of a new feature. If you're interested, you can now go to the bottom of your Zoom window on that little navigation bar, and you can click on live transcripts, and we have closed captioning available. So if that's something you're interested in, we now have that available for you. You can click down at the bottom, live transcript, and you'll be able to see all the words that you're hearing. Hope that's helpful. And yeah, wow, look, we have people calling in Massachusetts. Wow, Boston, Ohio, Michigan, all over the country. See, this is one of the best things about Zoom. It's so impressive. Wow.
We do a lot of work in Ohio.
I love it.
That's where the Clark Gable Museum was.
That's true. Yeah. We've been there before. That's right. Woodbury, Long Island, Texas. Dad, you like Texas?
I do.
Big fan there. And I saw Natalie is joining us this morning. Good morning, Natalie.
Miami Beach.
Fantastic. All right.
Sun and fun, capital of the world.
I love it. Oh, and UK. We know UK. So you're probably joining us. Another UK, London.
Washington.
Yeah, fantastic.
Thank you all for joining us. It means a lot to us. But let's get right on to it. Darren, would you like to introduce our special guest?
Yes, please. Alex, Carol, are you there? Come sign on.
Yes.
There's Alex.
Hello, we're here.
Hi, good morning.
Hey, good morning. We are thrilled to have you with us today. This is a little bit different from some of the other programs that we do, but I'll be honest with you, Hopper is probably my favorite artist. And that is the only reason that I really pursued this. I wanted to learn more about him, and I wanted to see some more of his artwork. And I know you two are going to be able to bring us into his world.
Yes, absolutely.
We hope so.
You ready to go?
Oh,
absolutely.
We're ready.
Okay.
All right, awesome.
So, here. So I'm glad you mentioned that this is not your usual and that you love Hopper. I find that a lot of people know Hopper's work, but they don't know his name. They don't associate him with the paintings. And so we're thrilled to have everybody from all over the country and all over the world enter our little museum in Nayak, New York, and learn a little more about Edward Hopper. So for those of you who are not that familiar with Edward Hopper, first of all, I'm sure you'll recognize his most famous painting, Nighthawks, done in 1942. It's in Chicago at the Art Institute. So Hopper was born in this house in 1882. His mother grew up in this house. Hopper lived here until he was about 28 years old, and then he moved to the city to pursue his artistic career. And he became an artist in this house. And even though he left Nayak in 1910, you'll find that a lot, and if you visit Nayak, you'll find that a lot of his later paintings incorporate elements of his experience in Nayak. Because what he did in his paintings, he would usually do sketches of the location that he would paint, and then he would go back to the studio, and he would bring his memory and his imagination. So what you'll see today, and if you visit Nayak ever, you'll see a lot of aspects of architecture, the quality of light, and other things that you'll recognize from Nayak and from being here that Hopper brought into his paintings.
Carol?
So,
Hey, Carol, is it true that he started his art career basically when he was just 13?
well, actually, he started, we have drawings from as early as 5 years old.
Wow.
When he was 10, he actually started signing his drawings. And so he had a sense that he wanted to be an artist from that early on. And we even had over here, which will show you, a little pencil box from when he was a kid that he inscribed would-be artist. So he knew early on that he wanted to be an artist. And and one more thing, just a little bit about the house itself. After Hopper left in 1910, his sister lived here, and she lived here her whole life. First with the mother, who died in 1935, and then the sister continued to live here unmarried until she died in 1965. And so Hopper visited all throughout his life. He stored his car here. He stored a lot of early work. There's a lot of work that we have here on view that was left in the house that a lender then returned to us to borrow and donated some of it. So this house has always been a Hopper house. And in 1971, a couple of years after he died, neighbors got together and raised money to make it an art center. And now it's a museum.
Okay. Can we see that pencil box you just mentioned?
Yes, I'm going to show you in a second.
Okay.
So anyway, we can start to walk through and I'll show you a little bit about what we have. This is the gift shop that we have. Now, this is the fireplace, and this later painting, I think it's from 1921. You'll see that he was no longer living in the house, but he continued to bring elements of the house into his paintings, and often very familiar paintings.
Alex, can you get real close to that so our guests can see it? There.
And this is,
There you go. Thank you.
okay.
Very nice.
So now this is kind of a fun thing that we have on view here. This is a series of photographs by Charles Milo. If you can see his name up here. He's a photographer in Massachusetts, and he went around to these locations in New England and New York, Northeast basically, that Hopper painted, and he then photographed the places. So you can see how similar the locations are to the actual paintings. This is Hopper House. This is the Nayak scenes here. Now in the oils.
So his art is based on actual locations?
Yes. So early in his career, he did primarily watercolors. And when he did the watercolors, he did them outside. And you'll see some of these are watercolors, some are oils. And the watercolors, it's pretty much exactly what you see. But like I said, when he did the oils, he would go home to the studio. He would do the sketches outside, and then he'd go back to his studio, and he'd change them up. So with the oils, for instance, this one, it differs a little bit. This is an oil. Those are the inspirations, but he would go home and go to a studio and change them. But he did he did less watercolors later in his career. He rarely did watercolors later on. But the watercolors are strikingly similar. And it's striking that, here's some more. It's striking to me that the watercolors, that the locations are so similar now, that they haven't changed that much. So, we have some of these on our website. You can take a look. So now the Edward Hopper House is right down the road, a block away. We'll show you a view of the river from his bedroom in a few minutes. But the river was right there. During his childhood, there were shipbuilding companies on the river, and he would often spend his time down by the river while he was fascinated by the building of boats. And he would constantly sketch. There are tons, especially in the Whitney Museum, dozens, maybe hundreds of drawings of boats and things that he would witness on the river. So it was fascinating to him. And that was where we have some of his earliest drawings. And so here we have some of those drawings. I mean, he was so young when he did these sketches. We don't have the exact date, but you could see he did it on a school paper. This one. He just, dozens and dozens and dozens of these early drawings. This is one of our favorites. It's called Little Boy Looking at the Sea. Now, he did that on the back of his report card when he was, the report card was from when he was 9 years old. And we think he did it a year or two after. Within a year or two, here we see that he signed it. And we know, according to Gail Levin, his biographer, who studied a lot of his notebooks and whatnot, that he started signing his drawings then. So he may have been about 10 years old when he did this. And of course, this is quintessential Hopper. It's this introspective figure.
How were his grades, Carol?
Yeah. And so the river was very inspirational to him. And he had, at one point said he wanted to be a naval architect, but he chose art instead. So
Carol, we have a question. We have a question for one of our guests. And was he influenced by somebody? Why did he get involved with art at such a young age?
At such a young age, it was, I would say, well, his family was very interested in the arts. They brought him to museums and film and music, opera they loved. And there's no evidence of who he saw when he was that young. So I just know that his mother had been, played with art. She was not a serious artist, but she did produce. We do, in fact, have some of her drawings. So she loved art. So she supplied him with art supplies when he was very young. So I think he just naturally took to it, is what I would assume. So here's some more drawings of the river. This is from 1900, so he was 18. So it's obviously more sophisticated. It just shows you what's going on in Nayak. It's very vibrant boating scene. And these are some other early drawings of Nayak. This is the church, a local church, which it's not the church that is affiliated with the family, but his great-grandfather actually founded the local Baptist church. And his family was very tied to the church, although as Hopper got older, he really didn't attend or pay much heed to it. So as I said, Edward left in 1910. He came back continually. In 1915, he taught classes to teenagers and young people in the house. And his mother would pose. She'd serve lemonade and cookies, and she posed for some of the drawing classes. And this is his mother, which we believe was done while she was posing for those classes. And it sort of recalls Whistler's mother, right? And we know that he saw Whistler's mother. He had gone to Paris and other places in Europe 3 times between 1906 and 1910. And so he would have seen Whistler's mother's painting, which was in Paris at the time. It was done in 1871, I think. Did I say? Yeah, 1871. So it was at the Luxembourg Museum at the time. And this, there you go.
Yeah.
No, thank you, Alex.
This is his little pencil box. It's a little reflection, but this is the one that says would-be artist. He signed it and wrote would-be artist. And this is a palette from when he was a teenager, and also his paint box.
To the reflection and everything,
Yeah.
kind of hard to do.
So here we have another paint box from later in his life. The paint tubes in this box are dated October 1861. And we know from his wife, Jo Hopper, he married Jo Hopper, his wife of over 40 years. They married in 1924. And from that point on, she kept meticulous notes about everything he did, every artwork he created. And So we know that from her notes that in October 1961, he was painting this painting, Woman in the Sun. It's in the Whitney Museum. So I just love that little fact that you can see, if you close in, you can see the red, the yellow, the blue, green. I mean, you can see where his fingers press the tubes of paint. He actually used those tubes of paint to create that iconic painting. So I love that.
Carol, where did some of these pieces come from?
These came from a loan from the Sanborn Collection. Reverend Sanborn was the reverend at the local church, and he was good friends with Marion, Edward's sister, and he was good friends later in life with Ed Joe, his wife. And he ended up being an executor of the estate. Marion, the sister, donated some early things to Reverend Sanborn, and other things he acquired after the death, and it was left in the house. And they loaned it back to us. Some of the things they loaned, some things they donated to us, other things they donated to the Whitney Museum. So we're grateful that he had the foresight to save a lot of the stuff that at the time they might not have thought was so important.
Carol, one question for you.
Yes.
Are you also personally an artist?
I do not call myself an artist. I like to travel. I studied art history is my background. So this is a drawing that's on loan to us from a private collection. And it's, of course, it's a study drawing for that painting, Woman in the Sun. And it's interesting because it shows you how he worked out his compositions. I mean, he would paint dozens of drawings, studies drawings before getting to the painting to figure out exactly what the painting would be like. So it's just a great example of his process.
Now, is it true that Josephine, his wife, was his model also?
Yes, she was pretty much his only model since they got married, and she didn't like other women modeling for him. And so even though she was his model, again, it would be, because she was his model when she was 70 years old too. She didn't really look 70, because she stood in for the sort of more anonymous figure that he would be creating. Because you can't always, the features are not always recognizable. Okay, so we can move on here. Look at that. So here, this is our current exhibition that just opened. It's caricatures with three artists, Edward Hopper, Dan Springer, and Michael Whitty. And the reason we have this show is because Edward Hopper created caricatures, and we have a small selection here, and these are two other local caricature artists that we wanted to give recognition to. And so you're looking at Michael Whitty here, and he did this Hats Off to Hopper drawing. Because Hopper, in a lot of his self-portraits and photographs, he's wearing this fedora. So that's a very familiar Hopper hat. And then Dan Springer did this caricature of Edward Hopper with Josephine in his shadow. And the reason for that is because Josephine was an artist, and before she met Hopper, she was exhibiting with some very important Hopper's artists. But she had a show at the Brooklyn Museum of Watercolors. They met, and he hadn't done much exhibiting at that point. He had always been painting. He went to art school, etc. In 1923, when they connected in Maine, they did watercolors together. She convinced him to exhibit some of those watercolors in the show she was having at the Brooklyn Museum, and he did. And after that, the next year, he had a show, his first big show of watercolors, and sold out. His career took off from then on. She sort of she continued to paint, but she sort of left her career behind in order to promote him and support him. And so here she is, metaphorically in his shadow. And so here are, I'm just against for this celebrity. He did these caricatures for a book called Who Said That?
Yeah, you have to slow down. We can't see them. I'm sorry.
I'll go back.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, I know those guys. Carol, how has the pandemic affected your museum?
Well, we were closed for several months. Yes, it has definitely affected the museum. Closed for several months. Now we're only open 2 days a week. We're open 5 days a week. So its attendance has been affected. Income, yeah, it's been rough. And so donations. Okay.
I just shared in the chat. If anybody's interested in visiting, I posted the website. You can check right there, and I'll put a link right now. If you'd like to become a member or donate, we'd greatly appreciate it, and I'll put that in the chat right now for you.
Great, thank
We
you.
appreciate that.
So yes, so
Carol, I'm sorry.
Yes.
We can't differentiate which of those caricatures are Hoppers.
I'm going to show you now. No, so the ones you just saw were Dan Springer and Michael Whitty. Now I just wanted to tell you a little bit about Hopper and his wife Joe, a little more about their relationship before we look at these very telling caricatures, because the caricatures are all about his relationship with his wife Joe. Except this one, which is this early one, which I'll show you in a minute. But so he married her in 1923. Like I said, she pretty much gave up her career. She was very outgoing and vivacious. He was very withdrawn, quiet. He didn't talk. In fact, she once mentioned that trying to have a conversation with him is like dropping I'm paraphrasing, dropping a stone in a well and not hearing an echo. So he really just didn't respond. And so they were always frustrated with each other. They fought, there was resentment. She loved her cat. There's some caricatures which we don't have, where the cat's like dying like a king and he's scrounging for food on the ground. So basically these caricatures are his frustration. Apparently he would do these drawings when he was frustrated with her and leave them around for her to find, basically just his way of communicating his frustration in the marriage with her.
Okay, Alex, Alex, just hug that picture so we can, character.
So this says she wants to paint, but she has to pick. So it's like, it's as if she's, abandoned her painting. She's too busy picking at little things. The house that Joe built, the thing about that perhaps is that in 1933 that he built a house they built a summer house in Cape Cod, Truro, Cape Cod, and it was done with money that she had inherited. So there's something to that here. He designed the house and he designed it with a great north-facing studio that he painted. A lot of his paintings came out of, but he didn't feel that she was a proper housekeeper. And he just complained about the way she took care of things. This is called Josie Leading Eddie to a More Spiritual Existence. I guess he felt that she was always trying to better him. And here they are it's Ed and Joe on the psychiatrist's couch. This is called He's Happy When the Lash Falls a Little Lighter. And then Shay Hopper, The Eternal Argument. And this is Eddie's garden, Josie's garden. This is called Rhine Wine. I'm not sure what that one's all about. came in separately. Yeah, so this one was done. So these were all done from the time they met for 20 years or so. It seems, through the 40s, we think. They're not dated. But this one is called A Misinterpreted Command. And it says here, Mrs. Henpeck. Now, John, I'm going out and I'll leave the fire in your hands. And Mr. Henpeck says, thoroughly frightened, oh no, you better leave it in the stove. So he did that in 1900 before he met Joe. So clearly he had an opinion about marital communication early on. And that's kind of reflected perhaps in his paintings later on, because there's a lot of times there's sort of a disconnect in the relationships that he paints. So,
Can we go upstairs?
yeah, well, we can go upstairs. Oh, there's a photograph here.
Oh, yeah, we'll do that.
Just some photographs that we have here of Edward and his sister. And here he is with his school class. This is him right here.
Yeah.
Edward was over 6 feet tall when he was 12 years old. He's about 12 years old here. He was very awkward and shy when he was a kid, and they teased him, called him Grasshopper, because of the way both his name and the way they said his legs folded under his desk because he was so tall. He had friends, but he spent a lot of time, like I said, he spent a lot of time alone by the river doing his sketching.
So did he and Joe have any children?
No children, no ancestors, no heirs, no family members after them. This is his drawing class in Robert Henry's school.
So the solitude we find in his paintings, that's a reflection of his own life, his own feelings?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
So here we have just a small hallway with a few things. This is a photograph of him by Arnold Newman, who's a famous artist photographer. This is the studio, the house in Cape Cod, and the big window he had, north-facing window. And that's Joe sort of making sure everything's done right. So in the teens, before Edward gained success painting, he was known for his etchings, and he had some success with the etchings. And he said that after I took up etching, my painting seemed to crystallize. So it was pretty influential for him, this work. And you can see that his sort of vision was established when he was doing those etchings.
Did Edward Hopper collect any art?
Yes, we know that he had some, he had a lot of friends who were artists. He had their work. He also had some folk artists that he collected. This is a painting by Joe Hopper. It's a watercolor. And we have a good amount of watercolors by Joe, and we're going to have a show of Joe's work in October. So tune in for that, so Joe can have her recognition.
Was she basically overshadowed because of him?
Well, because of him, he denigrated her work a lot, and she also spent a lot of time. I mean, I don't know that he forced her to document and promote his work so much. She put a lot of energy into helping him with his career. And she did these detailed, like I said, these journals with documenting every work that he did. And very specifically, he would do a little drawing of the work in the journal, and she would write down every paint color he used, the subject, every detail about the painting. So, but she, like I said, she continued to paint, but they never gained recognition or appreciation in her time. So that's why we're happy to give her that opportunity. So this was his bedroom, and it was not like that. Some of it was recreated. It was all recreated. There were only a few things that were here from when the time of Hopper. The bed, the table, the easel was his. So we had, a few years ago, we had some designers go through and, they used this painting that he had done. And there's another drawing that shows some of the things that were in his room at the time. And they did a lot of research and brought in period pieces and tried to recreate as he had it. The striking thing about the room is...
Alex, can you show us out the window?
Yeah, I was just going to show you that. Come, this window's even better. So he had a view of the river from the window. Now, of course, there weren't as many trees. You could see the river much better from there. And we don't have the best light right now, but especially in the evening. See, this window faces east, so you get a lot of morning light. And let me show you this light on the floor. Because if you know Hopper's paintings, you know that there's often a big swath of light on the floor. And you can't help but be influenced by that when you're in this room. And so in the evening, you want to go to the window again? Yeah. In the evening, that the light shining on the river, every day is different. It glistens. There's different kinds of colors on it. You could see how he was so influenced by this view. Another interesting thing I love is that these wires that you see out the window were actually probably not the number of wires, but there were electric wires at the time of his youth. And they probably bothered him because most of his paintings, I'd say 98% of the paintings that have telephone poles, there are no wires. He just eliminated the wires in the paintings. So I think that's interesting. So that's pretty much the walkthrough of the house. Wow. Questions?
I'm just thinking, looking out that window, it would be fun to have local artists take their own perspective, do small works, just looking out his window and what do they see?
Yeah, there have been over years plein air things out front, not from the window though. Well, we did. There is one artist, Koch, and I recommend that you look him up. He came up here and he painted here in the house. And he also has done residencies in the Truro house, which is a private house, but they occasionally let artists stay there. So for many years, Philip Koch has done residencies and painted in the house in Truro. And he's very influenced by Hopper. Philip Koch, his last name is Koch.
We're doing another plein air class coming up in September and October. It'll be like a ekphrastic poetry class and like a plein air painting type thing. If anyone's interested, it's virtual. So
yeah.
Francine mentions.
Was this considered a wealthy neighborhood, a middle class neighborhood?
They were very comfortably middle class.
And he did get to see some degree of success in his lifetime.
Yes, although he had lots of major sales, major exhibitions. Although they lived so frugally, they didn't spend money. They didn't enjoy the finer things in life. They just enjoyed, he just painted and went to theater and movies. And they ate open cans of soup for dinner, and she didn't cook, which again, like I said, was a bone of contention. But he lived in the same apartment from, I think, from 1913 until he died, 3 Washington Square North, an upstairs apartment. And they both painted there, and it was, he had a room, she had a room. They had a tiny kitchen and a bedroom, and that was where they lived and their whole lives, except for when they would spend an extended summer, like sometimes from May through October, November in Cape Cod.
Now, was there another famous person that lived in that neighborhood from the theater world?
Yes. Helen Hayes lived just down the street. And in fact, she, 1934, she commissioned him to paint her house. And it made him really upset to do that. Joe convinced him to do the commission. He didn't like to be told what to paint, but he did a perfectly nice painting of it. But Helen said that he was crabby and nasty, and he wasn't very, enthused about the job.
We have a few questions coming in from viewers. One, Francine mentions that photographers too would wish they could eliminate wires and power lines from their photographs. It's a nice opportunity. I'd like to know, can we see outside the other window? What's the other view that he would have been?
This one? This window or the one that's...
There's a closed,
This window is just, right now there's a building it was not there at the time. So no, there was...
Okay.
Yeah. We can go down and see the outside of the house if you like.
Please.
That'd be lovely. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll go first.
Before you go down, there was a painting that you went by. I think it was
it was used to recreate the bedroom. There were two paintings.
This is the painting one of the paintings.
Okay.
Of his bedroom. It's at the Whitney Museum. That's a reproduction of a self-portrait. That painting is at the Whitney also.
And then you're right, Pop. Yeah, there was a nighthawk, I think.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. It's we went by this quickly. So this is something that Joe wrote a note to a friend as a thank you for something, and she gave them this cover of Time magazine. And then she said, no, that cover's not a great gift. Here's a print of Nighthawks instead.
Wow. Beautiful handwriting.
Yeah.
Wow.
So from what I read, Nighthawks came out several weeks before Pearl Harbor.
Yeah. He didn't, One second, this quote, we love this quote. It's very fitting. He did not, if you could say it in words, there'd be no reason to paint.
Yeah.
And he didn't say it in words. He didn't say very much. Even in interviews, he was share information. This is the porch. So that house is very much the same as it was in his day. There, when he was born, they added the two north wing rooms on. But he grew up in the house as it is now.
Wow.
That big wisteria vine was there during his childhood. Needs to be cut back now a little bit.
Yeah, working on it.
Yeah.
So you're allowing people in 2 days a week?
It's open to the public on the weekends from 12 to 5. If people want to make an appointment for the weekday, they can definitely contact the museum, email us, or call us, and I can try to find a time that works best to bring everyone in.
All right, we have a couple more questions, and we have some images we would like to show you two and get your impressions of.
Sounds good.
So if you want to find a cozy spot to sit, and we can go through them.
Where you get a good signal.
Yeah. Actually, it's been pretty good, no matter where they've been. This is great.
We need to see what you're doing, showing? Yes. Okay.
Yep. Here, I'll pull that up. Here, let me ask this one question. Eva's interested. Did the Hoppers have any contact with Joseph Cornell, who also lived in Nyack, New York?
No, well, he lived in Nayak. Gosh, I can't remember. He didn't live as long in Nayak, but he is buried here. He's buried here. His house was just down the road. But no, it was after Hopper lived here. Does even know when Joe? I don't remember when Joseph lived here, but it was after Hopper.
Okay.
And it was a shorter period.
Short period of time. Okay. All right. Can you see?
I see Nighthawks.
Yep. There we go. That's just opening there. And here you go. Oh, yeah. I think your camera froze with your finger over the camera.
Is that better?
No, it's still the same right now. Yeah. Try toggling it forward and back, just reversing your camera for a moment.
Oh, yeah.
That photograph, the photograph we're seeing right now of Hopper was this in the house we're at, or was this the apartment he had?
That would be the apartment in Washington Square.
All right, that's okay. Let's continue. Your camera still came up as black right now, but we'll continue to show you some of the images.
Okay, that's weird. Yeah, let's see if I can make. Yeah, that's in Cape Cod. That's the weekends, right? Yes.
There we go. We can see you.
Oh.
Oh, maybe it is just a weak signal. Yeah, because you're frozen again, but that's okay. We can hear you clearly.
Okay.
And they got rid of the wires.
Oh, yeah. See.
Wow, you're right.
So lighting and shadows, this is pretty much his trademark.
Yes. And they call it Hudson River light here. It's a really, he was very struck by the light growing up here. He said that when he was young, what he was looking for was light on the side of the house and something like that. And he said that the light on the upper part of the house is different than that of the lower. Like, he's very attuned to the quality of light as it reflected on a house.
Here, we have another example of that next.
Yeah, high noon, that's called. And he also, identified many of his paintings by the time of day, because again, the light would shift and it would change the quality of the image of the location. That's 7 a.m. and that's one of the paintings that was inspired by a building in Nayak.
Jonathan just mentioned there's an Instagram filter called Hudson that's supposed to emulate that lighting you were just discussing.
Oh. So this is a house by a railroad, and there's a house in West Haverstraw that Hopper was seen painting, and then it's again, the painting is a little bit different than the actual house. The painting was done in 1925, and then Alfred Hitchcock was inspired by it for his house in Psycho.
Yep. Gold stars to those in the chat that spotted the Bates Motel.
You recognize it right away.
Yeah, that didn't take long.
Yeah. Early Sunday morning. Now, a lot of people in Nyack say that looks like Nyack. It was, based on buildings of 7th Avenue in New York City. But I would say that he was probably drawn to that because of the similarity in paintings and buildings with buildings in Nyack. Some people say he's an early pop artist because of this image promoting X-Lax. We all know this one.
Do we know what it? Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Darren.
Do we know what this is based off of? Where this inspiration came from, or location?
Well, the location is a series of locations. Carter Foster is a curator who was at the Whitney, and he did a show called Hopper Drawing in 2013. And he really did a lot of research on the location of this and went around and he identified certain places. The primary location, and what Joe said, was a corner on Greenwich Avenue and 7th Avenue in New York City. But it seems that there were other influences as well. And that building no longer exists, but it was sort of a corner street that this was influenced by.
You know, a clever artist could put Jerry Seinfeld and Julia Louis-Dreyfus
sitting at
what I was going to say though is what I find appealing about his art is that it's like you're stepping into a story that is yet to be told.
Yeah, this is why. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
This is why I think that his paintings are so universally loved, because he doesn't tell you what the story is. It's up to viewers, and so everybody can relate and make a story of their own about what the images are.
Yeah, and we have in the chat mentioning that his paint seems to bring aspects of loneliness. And
right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very frequently said. He says it's not, he's not trying to say that, he said that. He said maybe it's about loneliness, but basically, I forget the exact quote, but basically he's just talking about how it's really his own vision of the world.
And when you study creativity, I remember John Lennon. They were questioning him, and he said, "You read into it what you want." He said, "I'm just writing the song. You want to interpret it that way? That's up to you."
Yes, that's basically what if that's such a thing, what Hopper would say.
Now, would this have been Josephine posing?
Yes.
And this is I love our viewers. Kathleen just wrote in. She had visited a exhibition organized by the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts. The exhibition is based on the travels of Edward and Joe around the United States and into Mexico, and also provided links for everyone if you want to learn more there. I love it. Always learning more.
Great show. I wish I had seen it, but they did a lot of traveling together, and those images are really great. A lot of watercolors. They did a lot of watercolors during those travels. And the show that we have coming up of Joe Hopper, we have some of her watercolors, and we're juxtaposing, because part of the theme of the show coming up of Joe Hopper is that they painted side by side, and a lot of what came out of his work, it was influenced by sort of the composition she was creating. So that should be interesting. Mm-hmm. And so we have her paintings, and we'll have reproductions of his paintings that were created while he was sitting right next to her. And the interesting thing is how light and sunny her paintings are, the bright colors, and his are, his usual palette, which has light, but the colors are not so vibrant.
Do you know roughly like how long it would take him or Joe to finish a work?
Well, I know that for the paintings, he was not that prolific. He did only some 300 oil paintings over his career, over 300, but not, I can't remember the exact number. But so it wasn't a huge amount over his, over 50 more career of oil paintings. So he took time with his oil paintings. And the watercolors, of course, were done quickly. I can't say for exactly how long though.
Eva writes in that she sees similarities between Joe Hopper and Lee Krasner, Jackson Pollock's wife, which is absolutely, I think we can say that, and we can learn more about that, because next we are visiting the Jackson Pollock Museum.
Oh, good.
Yes, it'll be a great opportunity to compare. Here, let's look at some more paintings. And these are oil. These are all oils.
This is oil, yes.
Mhm.
So you see the whole story right there. There's a car waiting. She's got suitcases on the side waiting for her. She's waiting for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I found this one quite peculiar.
Well, this was very early. What is this, 1909 or something like that? This was, well, he done well, not in Paris, but he had visited Paris, and it's influenced by a lot of his experiences there. It's called Soir Bleu.
Interesting that he gave everybody cigarettes.
Yeah. Just different perspective rather than the stage. And Degas was an influence as well. He had seen Degas' work in Paris. And you can see that here.
We could have a writing contest with these.
Yeah, there are lots of poems and stories that are used the paintings as starting points.
On this one, you can actually see his signature at the bottom left-hand corner. It's pretty clear on this one.
And the shadows, as Carol was indicating, coming through the windows.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's asking if he used models when he was doing these types of paintings.
He would have Joe model, yes, and he would even have he would be himself a model as well. I mean, I know for Nighthawks, he was modeling and using mirrors and whatnot.
Did he always have photographers following him to document what he was doing? We saw quite a few of those shots from you.
Not always, no. In fact, he probably resisted that. Joe probably arranged those photography sessions. And so some of them, I would say there's only a handful through the years that they would schedule, and then there'd be a few shots from one session.
Here's somebody else with the suitcases.
Yep.
And another one with suitcases.
Same room. I mean, that's just another moment in time from that other painting.
That's not. Yeah, that's probably from the exhibit. That exhibit in Virginia. I know they set something like this up where they allowed people. Is the person who went to that show, Ava, I think? Would this be from that show?
Oh, okay, yeah.
They set something up that I think it was this room, and they allowed people to go in it, something like that. I didn't.
Nice.
Cool. Wow.
The idea of the windows, when he was commuting into the city, and also while he was living in the city, taking subways and stuff, he was very taken with the train and with the views from windows into spaces, sort of capturing that private moment, that's this voyeuristic thing that I think he got a lot from those experiences of riding past the buildings and looking in.
You know, there's a cinematic tone to almost everything that he's doing. It's almost as if it came out of a movie, and you could create an entire scenario on these photos, these paintings.
Yeah, which is why so many filmmakers and photographers have been influenced by him.
Yeah. All right, that is our last image to share, everybody. Wow, it's been really nice walking through those. Carol, Alex, thank you so much for such a lovely tour today and all the information that you shared with us. We really appreciate that.
Pleasure.
It was exciting. It really was. And I know you're going through a difficult time right now. We'll do what we can. Darren, let's show everybody how they can keep in touch with these nice folks.
Absolutely. EdwardHopperHouse.org. That is the site you are looking for, EdwardHopperHouse.org. And one more time, we're dropping that into the chat for you. This way you can click and join. You can see their events if you're local, lucky enough to visit them in person, but you can also show your support by becoming a member. You can donate, you can become a member, business partner, and supporter as well. Right now, the house is celebrating their 50th anniversary with numerous events that are taking place, and we even got to see some of those caricatures right now. So this is definitely something you're going to want to check out and learn more about. Follow the links. You can also follow Sal on Instagram. You can follow us on Facebook, and Sal is also usually very busy on Twitter as well. You can see we even have our this morning's lecture is posted over there. You can see a recording of this morning's lecture at Sal St. George on YouTube, and all of our virtual road trips are listed there as well. You can see here we have the Molly Brown House, P.T. Barnum, Ginger Rogers, Red Skelton, Donna Reed. Okay, there's a lot. So feel free to have some fun over there. Go to salstgeorge.com and you can sign up for all of Sal's programs. Our next virtual road trip is next month, September 13th. We're heading to the James Dean Museum. That's going to be fun in Indiana. And if you want to follow up, maybe consider it a part 2 to today's, we do have the Jackson Pollock Krasner House, and that's on Long Island. So we're going to have to pop over there in person one of these days as well, Pop.
You bet.
Next week, our lecture is the Carol Burnett story. As I said, Dad and I are going to be away, but John is manning the helm and going to revisit the Carol Burnett story. It's a wonderful lecture, especially if you're a fan of Carol Burnett. But there are tons of programs coming up here, as you can see, salstgeorge.com. And one last time, Alex and Carol, thank you both so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having us.
Great job. Great job.
Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and we look forward to seeing you all again soon. Bye, everybody.